also for the prompt that led to the first brief prose poem that I'm going to read. It's called Samaritans. The speckled fawn walks among them. As she nibbles earnestly at the foliage, the shade of her body throws the tombstone's dates into shadow. There's splendor in the sharply angled morning light. I imagine my own granite marker, its last line unfilled. In life's sadness, the days pass slowly, the years quickly. Each year, I keep my birthday quiet. Each one unacknowledged pushes that last line of engraving lower down the slab. Yes. And, pushed low enough, the end date will be covered by the growing grass and disappear from view. A stranger gave me a lift after my car died en route to my mother's funeral. Later, in the procession to her gravesite, unsettled and weary, I gaze out the window. Alongside the road, another stranger, an old man in a black coat and fedora, walks slowly through the fog, limping slightly, leaning toward the side of his cane. As the hearse passes by, the man in the black coat turns, removes his hat, presses it to his breast, and respectfully bows his head. Better than I, he knew what to do. That was one of the few pieces I've written that didn't have humor creep into it, so it's a point of pride, I suppose. This next piece is a bit of light verse. It's a piece that was conceived while I was watching college football. Donning his jersey, the reverend jock fancies it a cleric's frock, lending power to his prayers for God to bless just one team's players. God loves sports, and he's expecting after touchdown genuflecting. Praise him with each head you bash, and speak in tongues when talking trash. Once he parted the seas of bread and raised up Lazarus from the dead. Still divine, his intervention now keeps home teams in contention. See, each alma mater sports events deserve the potter's providence. So, every earthquake, fire, and flood, each volcano, slide of mud, every mishap, tribulation, every kind of devastation, every boil, frog, and locust happens because God is focused not on woes which without doubt come, but instead on this game's outcome. A student of mine recently gave me this mug. She said she saw it in a store, and she gave it to me and said, Dr. Scribner, when I saw this, I knew I had to buy it for you because it reminded me of you. Just like the owl on this mug, you see things from a strange perspective. This might be an example. A prose poem called Flies in the Face of Tradition. She was a proud nonconformist and came by it honestly, having attended a college where upwards of 75% of the student body were nonconformists. She chose as her wedding song Dave Brubeck's tricky rhythm Take 5, but insisted on waltzing during the wedding dance, severely confusing the groom and leading a few minutes later to their divorce. Awash with guilt, she told the guests in attendance she'd throw them a party in lieu of a wedding reception. Not that night, obviously, but she scheduled the party for Thanksgiving, knowing that she'd probably be making a meal that day anyway. Except for those who had abrogated their friendship in the interim, the wedding guests arrived in November and were greeted by their hostess, who exclaimed, "I'm so happy to see you," then roundly chastised them for being early. The guests looked at her sheepishly, so she whistled for her border collie to come, herd them into the dining room, where in a haphazard effort at atonement, they seated themselves alphabetically around the dining table. Rather than saying grace in the traditional manner, the hostess invoked the sages of several dubious spiritual traditions. Once those sages became manifest, they were mixed into the stuffing. The guests looked at each other nervously as the hostess wielded a rented surgical rib spreader to pry open the breast of the turkey, holding several packages of processed turkey breast, which he peeled open and served. Alongside the turkey, each plate was garnished with a faded Easter egg and a slice of still under warranty fruitcake. The hostess insisted upon saying grace again, just to be sure, but in the interest of time, she shortened the invocation by simply screaming, "Grace! Grace!" Two of the women then began yammering about who should pass whom the sweet potatoes, and a fight broke out. The women kicked and clawed, scratching at each other. One of the onlookers sprinkled both salt and salt substitute in the women's wounds. Inevitably, though, seasonings change, and there was no stopping the passage of time, which got sprinkled far too liberally on every plate, ruining the taste of the turkey. That's sad, isn't it? The hostess dashed to the store and purchased a pre-cooked spiral-sliced ham, which was passed around the table, gradually stretching out as each guest grabbed a hold of his or her section until a slinky-like band of ham linked everyone in attendance. This aura of unity had a soothing effect. The hostess was pleased, as she did not want an encore of the evening's earlier tensions. She decided to say grace again, this time in more traditional fashion, invoking Jesus Christ. And with ham and Jesus, all was saved. Sometimes I get ideas for pieces from reading the newspaper. Often it will be a headline. If not a headline, it will be a sentence or a phrase that appears in the first line or two of the story. Here's one example. I saw a news story that included the statement, and I'm quoting here, "The declining average sperm counts among American men have been attributed to various factors, including tight underwear and sedentary jobs." And that led to this poem called Lessons from History. Back when man would hunt and gather, he was never wimpy. Rather, he was strong, aggressive, feral. Back then, he was virile. Clad in loincloths, unafflicted, vas deferens still unrestricted, seizing every chance he sees to propagate his species. But now he sits there in a chair, constricted by his underwear, sedentary, prone to whining as his sperm's declining. His reproductive hopes are slim since they got their hands on him. He's chained all day to his computer, slowly growing weary. If our culture hopes to save man, we should emulate the caveman's rules for how to reproduce. Be real active, dress real loose. And finally, a very short piece. I think this is the shortest poem I've ever written. And it continues with the unintentional biblical theme that seems to have peeked out in several of these pieces today. This last one refers, at least obliquely, I suppose, to the book of Genesis. Among my poems that are floating around out there in the world, this is the one that was written earliest. I was 17 years of age, and perhaps of some significance, still a virgin. The title, There's Hope for the Sexually Inexperienced. Before pretty Eve was nigh Adam. Poor Adam was pretty naive.